Yeah, it's Eric Coffin. I'm speaking to you from the inaugural Metal Investors Forum in Toronto the day before PDAC. I'm here with one of the companies that I invited to Metals Investors Forum. Chris is a COO? CEO?
President.
Okay, President. Okay, President of SilverCrest Metals, a company I've followed from its inception. One thing you got to know about SilverCrest is you need to look at the history. This is a group that successfully discovered, developed, put a mine in production. They did a deal to be taken over by First Majestic. I know because I was around at the time, and I'm pretty close with Scott and Barney and Eric, that it was very much a deal breaker that the project that you're focused on now had to be spun out into your new vehicle. You've been working on that for the last couple of years. You just put out a really impressive initial resource. 700 buck a ton rock. It's hard to complain about that. And as before the camera started rolling, I mentioned to you that I don't follow a lot of silver stories. I'm not a silver bug. I'm not really following this because I'm a silver bug. I'm following this because I'm looking at something that's got it's got grade, it's got margins, it's got locale, it's got management. You put out this great resource. Where do you go from here? I mean, one thing that I noticed, I did wonder, I got something out to readers fairly quickly, but the resource that you put out, can you talk a little bit about Area 51, which seemed to be the driver, but when I looked at the map, there's a fair number of holes on there that were done, but that you just didn't have time, right, to get into this one. Like there's still quite a bit of reporting coming immediately around the current resource envelope that should be coming any time now.
Yeah, I think for context, it's important to understand the whole resource was 185 drill holes, and that Area 51 is 20 holes, and those 20 holes were just coming out over the last 2-3 months. So in that resource that's 572 grams a ton, this Area 51 is averaging over a kilo a ton. Whenever you do a resource, you always have to pick a date to cut that off to kind of calculate up the numbers. But we're going to be drilling aggressively, and we're going to be constantly coming out with drill holes, hopefully every few weeks or so. But yeah, we will be aggressive, and that's one of our main priorities is to drill up that area. For context, again, those 20 holes equaled 32 million ounces.
Okay.
So in terms of bang for your buck right now, we're hitting on 80% of our holes, and we're finding ounces for less than 30 cents an ounce.
Okay.
So we're being prudent with people's money here, but we're also growing the value proposition quickly.
Now, what's the plan in terms of additional drilling? Like, how much more drilling do you think you'll be doing before you do, say, the next resource estimate, or are you going to try to get a PEA done first, or are you going to do another resource first? Do you know yet which order that's going to go?
We're drilling.
Right.
Again, I think our best value add is to get out there with that. One of the key things to know with that resource, you can do your math at home and get a sense of the size and scale already. Mm-hmm. So those 3.4 million tons, if you divide it by your 350 days a year, operating days, 1,500 tons a day, right. We're getting there. We have a very robust project. Right. We believe right now. If you talk to the research analysts and they would already say we have a project that had a 77% IRR. That's Aid Capital that has that number out there. Right. So Eric is a geologist and a mining engineer. So he's always in his head thinking about that PEA and that document. That's something that we're guiding the market. We will have out by the end of this year. Okay. We haven't come out and talked about if we're going to have resource updates in the meantime. We will be drilling a lot in the meantime. Right. But again, this to note is we only have 5 veins of 19 known veins on the property. So this truly is a maiden resource as opposed to a finish line. So this project can scale quite dramatically, and those 5 veins are still just being touched on. That Area 51 is only about 400 to 500 meters. Right. We've got another 1.5 kilometers just on that vein along strike and that depth.
Yeah, and to give you to give listeners or viewers some context, SilverCrest built the Santa Elena mine, which is about 25 kilometers away. I think right now that's operating with 80, 90 buck a ton material, give or take. Is it even that? It's
Their
probably not
costs are about $80,
Okay.
so they're operating that thing quite well. It's
And
about
that's-
$650 all-in costs per se, but
And
their
that's
grams.
that's blended, right? That's blended underground, and they're pulling stuff off the pads as well, I guess.
Yeah, Eric built that in 08, 09, and not a great time. He started
Yeah.
off with a leach pad operation, and now they're mining from the underground, and they're blending the leach pad material with underground ore.
Okay.
And their average grade to the mine, to the mill there, is 150 or so grams a
Right.
ton. So I mean, our grade right now, that's why we were quite happy to get this project on that spin out.
Yeah.
And that our current resource has 63 million ounces at 572 grams a ton. And we had always envisioned that this project's ore going into that mill.
Right.
We didn't have the data at the time, we hadn't drilled it at the time, but with the proximity like that, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a story where, you know, you see there's a lot of silver companies around. I get shown a lot of silver deals. I have a hard time getting interested in most of them, quite honestly, because I found the majority of them, they're coming in 100, 150, 170 grams per ton, you know, sort of maiden project where they've got to build the whole thing out themselves. And, you know, 150 grams a ton, marginal for a silver project. I mean, if you're starting from scratch building it today, you don't make a lot of money. What always attracted me to SilverCrest was I knew Eric well enough to know he's margin. That's beginning and end with him. And that's what you guys seem to have delivered here. I mean, your initial resource is, you know, basically 4 times the average of what I generally see coming out of Mexico with silver developers. And that's really the name of the game. I mean, you've got to be the lowest quartile player to be able to weather those different cycles. And it sounds to me like you've obviously got a lot of room to make this thing bigger still. I mean, this is a story where it's important to take a hard look at this thing. If you take a look at the chart, you kind of go like, wow, it's at a bit of a move, which it has.
Yep.
Largely deserved, I believe. But I think it is important to look at how tight the structure is, how small the float is relative to a lot of other deals, and that these are very, very high margin ounces. I mean, these aren't ounces that are going to get the average valuation, nor should they, because of the kind of margins involved.
And mining's a risky business. We all know that. And if you know Eric, who's built 10 mines and he's worked in 30 countries, he's been doing this for a long time, and it is a family affair for him. You know, if you look at what we did next door in terms of the execution of the Santa Elena mine, you can get a feel for where our capex might come in at.
Yep.
Again, that work's still to be done. And if you look at that value per ton of rock, again, we all know there's risks, and if the commodity price falls or capex is higher than we think it could be, this room still has a lot of margin to give up. And again, so people getting into this story now get high impact drilling. Again, hitting on 80% of our holes with a proven management team on a project that still has a lot of flexibility at today's hopefully trough metals pricing.
Yeah, I'd like to, even not being a silver bug, I'd like to think it's not going much lower than this, and you've got a lot of torque for higher silver prices. Again, this is a story you really should be paying attention to. Great team, great project, and that'll do for now. Thanks,
for your
Chris.
time. Appreciate it.